According to Dave Chappelle, Hillary Clinton leaked the Donald Trump Access Hollywood tape, you know, the very lewd tape where he said a number of different inappropriate things. Also, grab him by the pussy. We all remember that. So this was at the Cutting Room in New York City, and not only was Dave Chappelle doing his stand-up, but I guess he broke to speak. We're kind of unclear about that, or if this was part of the stand-up, but he says, quote, "What I heard on that tape was gross, but the way I got to hear it was even more gross. You know, that came directly from Hillary." And then he goes on to argue that Trump's comments weren't an admission of sexual assault, but quite the opposite. He goes on to say, quote, "And when you're a star, they let you do it." He's repeating what Donald Trump says. "That phrase implies consent. I just don't like the way the media twisted the whole thing. Nobody questioned it." And then he goes on to call Donald Trump the most gangsta candidate ever for staying strong in the aftermath of the tape's release. He also had talked about, not only at the stand-up, but also in the Observer, he had said that he voted for Hillary Clinton. He voted for her early, but he has mixed feelings about it, and that when he cast his ballot, he, quote unquote, didn't feel good about it. Thoughts, 5 words or less?
Cutting edge controversy.
They ain't coin material.
Not that gangsta.
This election is a joke. You mentioned coin, right? So this is another part of it. Since you mentioned it, I'll say this. So he also said this: she's going to be on a coin someday, and her behavior has not been coin worthy. She's not right, and we all know she's not right. So this is the thing, and I think a lot of people feel the same way. This is a tricky election, and a lot of people feel like that they are voting for the lesser of two evils. But really, Donald Trump? I mean, you got to at least see who's aligned with your policies.
Well, in Donald Trump's case, he doesn't really have any policies.
Right.
He doesn't have any clear-cut policy positions. There's an awesome Occupy Democrats video out there that's like 2 minutes long, I think,
saw it.
where it shows every single different point where Donald Trump, on every single issue, every single important issue, from border patrol to nuclear, like arming other countries with nuclear weapons, to abortion, to minimum wage, going back on every single policy position he's had throughout the campaign. Now, because of that, like, that's one of the worst things, I think. That's one of the worst things that you can do as a politician, is not have clear-cut policy positions and just basically run on a campaign of personality. And I don't like when people are like, oh, well, I don't appreciate Hillary Clinton. She's not going to make any change. When in reality, Donald Trump is not going to be able to make any change.
She's a far better candidate.
Yeah,
but
at least the Democrats support Hillary Clinton. The Republicans don't even support Donald Trump. So what kind of change is he going to make? Unless you're implying that he will bring about a dictatorship in America by slowly eroding our constitutional rights and eventually being like the single leader, which I have seen in different countries like Russia, and I've personally experienced it in my own country, in Turkey. And those leaders all have a very similar uniting factor in their cult of personality, like status.
They're narcissists, sociopathic.
Yeah, they're against, like, I mean, all sorts of, I mean, they utilize like libel and slander to kind of suppress the press, which Donald Trump has alluded to many times throughout. And it's an incredibly scary, it's just a terrifying thought to have Donald Trump as president, but people are still like, oh, well, Hillary Clinton's awful. Yeah, I know Hillary Clinton's f***ing awful. She's just not nowhere near as awful as Donald Trump.
You can't compare. You had mentioned that Dave Chappelle has since responded from
I think it might have been his press.
Like a press release, a statement,
yeah, they were just making the point that he voted for Hillary and that he was equally, in the bit, he was equally criticizing both of them.
Okay.
So whatever news outlet broke this was kind of making it sound like he was criticizing Hillary for Trump's thing, but in the whole routine, apparently he was mocking them both.
That's a good point, because he did get a lot of flack for these comments. People thought that he was pro-Trump because he was calling Trump gangsta and all these things and criticizing Hillary Clinton. You can still criticize the candidate that you vote for. We should always question authority. We should always want the best from our candidates. What did you think?
So my thought on this was sort of like a question for you guys. Do you agree with what Dave Chappelle said about it's more gross of how the tape got leaked than the tape itself?
No.
Because I think that he raised an interesting point that I disagree with, but I think it's something that we should be asking. I do think that what Donald Trump said on that tape on the infamous, what are we calling it now? Like, what's the pussy grabbing tape?
Pussy
or something?
grabbing
Who
tape,
knows?
whatever.
That's
But I know
Billy Bush,
but
the end
think
of
about
Billy
it,
Bush's career.
It is horrific, and I think that it is more gross. But I think that it was interesting, and this is what I like about comedians, because you can be subversive and you can question authority in very unique ways. Is it more gross that probably the Clinton campaign had this tape and sat on it and waited until October? There is something that we should be talking
I
about.
don't care
but
how
his
it came
position
out.
is-
I don't care how it came out. I want, as a voter, I want to be informed about my candidates. I want to know their character. I want to know how they act behind closed doors, in front of doors. I want to know.
Do you think that if the Clinton campaign did have the tape before they
That's
released
politics.
it, do you think
That's
that
politics.
But do you feel like they had a responsibility to release it sooner to make sure that all the voters had the information, or are you okay with it being sort of a strategic release?
I guess that part of it, I don't really care. I
Yeah.
How
don't.
are we getting that the Clinton campaign released it when, they probably discovered it, but it was the actual NBC that released it.
Yeah.
Right?
It
So-
goes along with the collusion that we've constantly discussed and criticized with the collusion between media and the DNC and the Clinton campaign in general. It happened in the primaries, and we learned about it in the aftermath of the WikiLeaks releases, and it happened throughout the general election. Now, we know this. That's what Dave Chappelle is alluding to. Also, one other interesting point that you guys are kind of missing here is his position on this matter is that it wasn't implying non-consent. That's what I thought was really interesting. Dave Chappelle is saying it's not, he's implying that there is consent. He's saying that when you're a star, they let you do anything. Now, I had never even considered it up until this point. And you know that grabbing them by the pussy, and Donald Trump very well knows that grabbing them by the pussy is something that's unacceptable. And
It's
that's
assault.
why,
Sexual assault.
he understands it as sexual assault. That's why he's mentioning that as an extreme example of what happens when you're famous. So he's still alluding to sexual assault. He's saying when you're famous, they'll let you sexually assault them. But Dave Chappelle's position, I just wanted to clarify, is that isn't sexual assault.
Is that he's saying it's consent. I think the verb is really interesting, though. Let. To me, that implies sort of like a silent resignment that I think a lot of women have felt when a
Yes,
guy creeps
Grace.
them out.
Good
It's not like let as in they want you to do it. They ask you to it. There is that discussion of consent. The verb let is very much like when I've been out at like a party with friends, and some guy is like dancing with my friend, and she lets him dance with her for a little bit just to avoid the problem, and then we'll be like, okay, can you save me? You know what I mean? And I think that's different. When he says they let you, it's like I can do what I want, and they're not going to say anything because I'm so powerful.
I
And
agree,
if you grab
100%.
somebody, how much reaction time do you have to let them or not let them? It's a grab.
Yeah. One final thing I will add is this, though. Okay? Regardless of how these tapes were released, regardless of the timing of the tapes, none of that matters. In the end of the day, this is what Donald Trump said. That's the only thing that matters. And to be fair, we criticize Hillary Clinton in the same way. We don't give a shit that Russia may have hacked into the DNC servers and are trying to change the outcome of this election by releasing information. In the end of the day, the Hillary Clinton campaign still committed those things. They still committed these atrocities, which a lot of people criticize the Clinton campaign for. So if we're going to criticize the Clinton campaign for it because they did that regardless of how it was released, we're going to criticize Donald Trump just as much for talking about it because that was him. That shows his mentality.
Yeah. Wow, this is a great discussion. And tomorrow's the big day, so make sure that you get out and vote. This is for, obviously, our American viewers. So please share your thoughts in the comment section below. Don't forget to subscribe, and we'll see you next time on Pop Sugar.